Okay, isn't that always the case, friends? Hey, okay, I'm going to mute you, but unmute yourself as you see fit, as you want to comment or ask a question. Don't feel muzzled. All right, so we're in the middle of this whole discussion, but I'm going to bring everybody up to speed. The root of this is what the Rebbe is explaining is the positions of Rabbi Gamliel and the Chachamim, who have two general perspectives, positions in life, in purpose, and that manifests itself in the various disputes on various subjects, which we've explored, two of them already. We've also explained why they need to state their opinion in both cases. If it's a position they hold, why wouldn't we just hear it articulated in one case and then deduce and extrapolate that they would hold a similar position in another subject? As we explored, the subject matters are different, and there's a reason to argue that a position held in one particular subject wouldn't apply to a second. This is, as we mentioned, a pattern of the way the Gemara works. It's called Vitzricha. The Gemara will bring down a dispute between two sages, and then another dispute that seems to be of the same substance. So why did they have to state their opinion about another subject when we can extrapolate? Vitzricha, it has to be said because we would differentiate. So we've explored that also. Now, what's the general machlekes here? So far, the general machlekes has been what is more valuable, kamus or echus, which means quantity or quality. And the classic dispute, as we explained and very profoundly, is their argument about a minyan. What's the ikar of the minyan? Is the ikar the tzibur, the congregation, and the shliach tzibur? That's the Chachamim. The Chachamim hold the ikar is the kamus, the quantity. So the main virtue of a minyan is the fact that many people come together and daven. What about the shliach tzibur? He's really only there for someone who doesn't know how to daven. But if everybody did, then you wouldn't need a shliach tzibur, as it were, in the perfect world, let's say. Yeah, Rabbi Gamliel says no. He says the main thing is the shliach tzibur. So why do you daven? Why does the minyan daven? So the answer then, in the times of the Gemara, was that to give him time to be able to masader his tefillah. It was all said by heart and no printed sidurim. And that's just to prime him, to prep him. Nowadays, when we do daven, Rabbi Gamliel would say, as the commentaries that I've explained, and moreover, you yoytze when you daven, even according to Rabbi Gamliel holds the shliach tzibur is the ikar, is the main thing. He still holds when you daven privately shvunes with the minyan, you yoytze. So what's a shliach tzibur? Mele, the time of the Gemara, where people didn't daven necessarily. Good. So the shliach tzibur is the main thing is the shliach tzibur. But now, according to Gamliel, everybody does, and you're yoytze. So what's his point? So the answer is we explained this, that the shliach tzibur then takes your davening to a whole new level. Whatever level it was that you davened as as part of the community is one level, but Gamliel says no. The main thing is shliach tzibur. He spoke about Hashono Yom Kippur, which we won't repeat. Then we explained that this was reflective of a famous historical event that occurred, and that was Rabbi Gamliel was the Nasi, was the leader, and he was removed from office. And when he was removed from office, so things dramatically changed. The yeshiva that he headed, this was the yeshiva. So he had made He had made a condition that only a Talmud that's toichei kebarei, who's inside, or rather his outside reflects his inside, could be admitted. And when he was removed from office, and Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah replaced him, so that day many hundreds of benches were added to the Beis Medrash. So here again, it's the same argument: quantity versus quality. Gamliel says we're looking for quality, not large numbers in the yeshiva, but quality talmidim. And Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, the Chachamim say, kamos, quantity. We explained that in depth, and we also explained why they need to state their opinions in both cases, because there's reason to differentiate. Now, we started saying that this machlekes between the sages, Rabbi Gamliel, who was, as you also pointed out already, Rabbi Gamliel was the Nasi. Because he was the Nasi, and we explain what that means, therefore he points to the Maila, the Shliach Tzibur, who was the Nasi. But we'll see more about that at the end. We also spoke about that last week. Gimel Tammuz, Nasi Hu HaKol. The Nasi is everyone, as Rashi taught us in last week's parsha. But now we add another dimension to all of this, and that is a very subtle kind of distinction. Now we're going to rephrase this, reframe their two positions from quantity and quality to matter and form, or another way of saying that, in Hebrew, I'll say the Hebrew, chaymer and tzura. So in everything has a chaymer and tzura, everything it takes up space, it is an object, and then it's form. It's content. So I don't think this is a good perfect example. It may help you a little bit to understand the difference. So art. So what would be better to have in your house? One piece of art, let's say it adds up all to the same value. We're not talking about the value, the monetary value. One small painting of high quality, that's all you got in your house, on your wall. It's a big wall. And you have one small painting. Or many paintings, a big wall, a very big wall. Many paintings of lesser quality. Not a perfect example, but kind of brings out the idea. Would you want to have many cars of lesser quality or one of higher quality? Clearly, there's virtue and advantage to having a lot versus one. There's advantage to having, this virtue, of course, obviously to the one quality one, but then you miss out on the value of quantity. I mean, the car example maybe is a better example, because you have a lot of less expensive cars. You have one here, you have one in the office, you have one you have one to give to your kids. I mean, you can do a lot of stuff with a lot of cars. Even for yourself, never mind giving to others, for yourself, different locations. Sometimes you don't want to have a better quality car, this. Or no, put your money in one item that's of a higher quality. And this, in life, it's endless examples of that. So we're going to see a machlokes between the two of them, that it matches up, basically. If you're saying quality, so we're looking at, it's like the Shliach Tzibur. The content versus and if you're saying the chaymer tzur, again, different language now, not quantity and quality. Now we're talking its content versus its mass. Content versus mass of a particular thing. So let's look at the argument. The argument is page pay. Let's have a look at it. The case is right at the right-hand column at the top. We can explain now another argument between the sages, now that they go consistent with their positions, but now we're framing it in a different language and using a different model. Again, mass versus quantity versus the quality, not quality, but the content. For who bedin, what's the case? So again, the case is as follows. Someone says, you owe me X amount of wheat, and the other fellow says a certain value. Not arguing value here. And the other fellow says, I owe you, but I owe you only barley. Now, moreover, she says, you owe me $100 of wheat. This is the case. And he says, I owe you $50 of barley. $50 worth of barley. Okay, we're clear? Reuven says, you owe me $100 worth of wheat, and Shimon counters, I owe you, but I don't owe you wheat. And I don't owe you $100 worth either, I owe you $50. Now, the classic case is explained last week. This is a very classic case of what's called Moide b'miktzas, somebody who admits to a partial claim. So let me refresh your memory. So we explained last week that the halacha is, if someone comes along and says to somebody else in front of a court, whatever, you owe me whatever it is, the burden of proof is on the one who makes the claim, obviously. Prove it, that I owe you. You come to someone else, that computer is mine. You don't have to have the one who's the defendant doesn't have to produce a bill that it's his. It's on the contrary. It's the one who is the accuser. What's it called in the is the defendant and the
plaintiff.
The plaintiff. Thank you. The plaintiff has to produce the proof. However, that's obviously. As Yossi says, the principle is if you want to take money out of someone else's pocket, all of the one who the plaintiff has to, on him is the burden of producing evidence. However, what if somebody admits to a partial claim? It says, I'm just going to mute someone just came on, didn't mute themselves. So if somebody admits to a partial claim, so then the halacha is we're a little bit concerned. In the case where the person denies it outright, so there's two considerations. Number one, if we allow this, if someone makes a plaintiff an accusation, and he is considered right until the other person defends himself, then that's anarchy. You go until you say this belongs to me, the other person's had it and doesn't have the receipt anymore, and you go take it. Society will crumble instantly. But in addition to that, there's the consideration that we don't. The average person will not deny a loan outright. The person did me a favor, he lent me, gave me this money, whatever the case, I owe him, and nobody would have the chutzpah to completely deny that. Especially not in a court of law, not the average person. There are exceptions, but the rule cannot deal with the exceptions. Now, however, if someone admits to a partial claim, so now we're suspicious. Maybe he does own the whole thing. Doesn't have the temerity, the chutzpah to say that he doesn't own the whole thing. So he admits only to part of it. So how are we going to know? What do we do? So you put the pressure on him. What's the pressure? You don't have to bring proof. But you have to swear. You have to take an oath, and the Bezdin that you only owe 50% and not 100%. If the person is willing to take such an oath, holding a Sefer Torah, etc., fine. And that's it. You pay your 50%, and that's the end of the day. Have a good day, everybody. Goodbye. The case over here is an unusual case because the case is he's admitting to. He's admitting to there's a claim, but it's the wrong claim. You say, I owe you $50, $100 worth of what? Of wheat. And he says, I owe you $50 worth of barley. Does he take such an oath in such a case or not? That's the machlekes. Let's have a look. So again, the plaintiff argues wheat, and the defendant admits barley. The Chachamim argue hold shupater. The defendant is exempt from any oath. Now, does he have to? Now, the question is, I'm not going to go into this, a separate discussion. It's many opinions. Okay, he doesn't have to take an oath, but does he have to pay the $50 worth of barley that the guy claims? He's not claiming, but that he admits that he owns. The guy says, you owe me $50 worth of wheat, and he says, you owe me $50 worth of barley. Does he have to pay that? So that's a question of dispute, and there's different opinions and also different scenarios. How exactly was it said? What exactly did he respond? That's not our discussion. Our discussion here is the oath component. Is this the classic case of moide b'miktzas, admitting to a partial oath, but not the classic case? Acham say it's not. The classic case is he admits the same object or money. The guy says you owe 100, so you owe 50. Then you got to swear for the rest. But here, he's talking chitim and he's answering sa'irim. So the Chacham say, but Gamliel says, no, he's got to take the oath. He's got to take the oath that what? That he only owes him $50 worth of barley. He's got to swear. So the Chachamim in the brackets Tanakam, the first opinion, Svirilo holds when is this whole law of the admission of a passion claim? Horak is only you have to admit to the claim. You have to admit to a part of the actual claim. Here he's not, because he's talking wheat, he's answering barley, so the whole thing doesn't apply. Gamliel holds, even when the admission in this case, it's not of the actual argument, still he says a chai shavua, doesn't change anything. He's still got to take the oath because of the principle of admission to a partial claim. You have to swear that you don't owe the remainder. Now we're going to get down to the root of it. We'll see, the epiphany moment that they're consistent with quantity, quality, or substance, content. Substance versus content. Let's see it. Here too, this is really dependent on this question, this debate, this existential debate. What's the main thing of any scenario? It's mass or kamus, its quantity, shaboy of it, or its content, in brackets, we said it earlier using related language, echos, quantity. Can I say quality? Shaloi. That's the debate. Ubehektim. Now we'll understand it if you haven't already figured it out. Atam, the reason the reason that the principle is that in order to be obligated for an oath, you have to admit to the actual claim being leveled against the plaintiff. Why is that principle? If you're not admitting to the actual claim, Nimtza comes out, you're not admitting to a partial claim. That claim doesn't stick. He's talking wheat, you're talking barley. He's not admitting I owe you some of the wheat. He's denying the wheat, complete denial. So he's really, in essence, you could view it that this case is a case of complete denial. The fact that he admits that he owes barley, there's no claim on that. Ein klal shum taina shel teveya. The claimant has no claim on barley. So you could view it as the classical case of I don't owe you anything. I don't know anything. You say I owe you. So therefore, the whole thing doesn't apply. We can't apply the principle that you take an oath when you admit to a partial claim. He's denying that claim. That's the principle. But now the question is, what's the claim? How do we view the claim is the question now. And hence the argument between the sages. Do we look at the chaymer of the claim, the mass of the claim, or the content of the claim? Let's see it inside the text. You see where we're going now? But this is beautiful. Avo. However, we just said now that in order to be obligated to take the oath, you have to admit to a part of the claim. The question now is, well, what exactly is the claim? What do we consider to be the main component of the claim? In a monetary claim, there's two dimensions, there's two aspects. Number one, the actual claim, it's a certain thing. This wheat, it's barley. We're not talking monetary. Monetary is different. Money is money. It's about objects. Wheat, barley, now Shazel or with him, and you owe me the car, you owe me the lawnmower that I lent you, whatever it is. So that dimension is the mass, it's the quantity, the external quantity of the claim, not the idea of the claim, it's the actual physicality of the claim. What's the content? But the content of the claim, regardless of what we speak of, that surah, the form or the content, we have any claim, it all comes down to a monetary thing. There's a value. There's a value. You owe me value. That's the content. The mass of the claim is a particular thing. So the content is really a value, a monetary value. He's asking, in the end of the day, I'm out of pocket a certain value, whether it's wheat or barley. Shazel Shava is puts in brackets. Shazel Shava b'chol, the monetary value is equal in every claim. If he's whether it's chitim, it's wheat, soid, barley, etc., or anything under the sun. So in this claim dispute here, what are we looking at? The claimant. What do we say is the essence of the claim? Is the essence of the claim the matter or the content? That's the argument. It's consistent. And this is the argument between the Chacham and the sages. Asli, they go according to their respective positions. They're consistent. They're consistent. Another word for it. Yeah. Namely, Chachamim hold the Shitasim according to their view. Sha'ika b'chol dava. The main thing what we look at is chaymer. We look at the actual substance, kamos, the numbers. The main thing is the tzibur. We have more students, even though they're not consistent. Vimkein here too. Same thing. They would apply it here as well, and they do. Kishiton or chitim. When the guy is asking, you owe me wheat, beside him, and the guy says, wheat? No. Or your barley. So since we are focusing here on the substance, there's no claim. He's not admitting to a part of the claim, because we're defining the claim as the actual substance, the body, not the content, the body of the claim. Therefore, they say there's no partial admittance, no oath. Gamliel says, no, we don't look at the actual mass. That's not the main thing. The main thing is the content. The main thing is the quality. The main thing is the content. So what's the difference whether it's wheat or barley? It comes down to a value. We go beyond the surface and look at the value. He did admit to a partial claim. Because if we're looking at the content, he says, you owe me 100. The guy says, oh, you're 50. The fact that externally it's wheat and barley, that's not significant. Even though the actual stuff that they speak about, he's not admitting to. He's not admitting to the actual stuff of the claim, but he's admitting to the content of the claim. Oh, you got to take the oath. So again, we see Rabbi Gamliel and the sages consistent with their positions as to what do we consider to be the primary consideration in any situation, quantity or quality. Chaymer or tzura, the mass or the content, the bottom line content of it. Are we clear? Yeah? Yes? So now we have to explain v'tziricha. Now we have to explain, well, we would know that they would hold these two views because we know what they say about davening, we know what they say about the story, we know their opinions in the story of the yeshiva, of the Beis Medrash. Why must it be stated here? So now that Rabbi is going to explain, no, they have to articulate it here because we're going to give a very strong argument to make a distinction between this case here and the previous cases, and we would not know what they hold accordingly. All right, ready for this analysis? This is classic Gemara thinking, Talmudic analysis. So let's dive right into it. Chapter Vav, chapter 6. Everybody, we're good so far, yeah? Okay. What's novel in this argument, over and above, it's why it has to be stated, over and above the previous two cases, and again, the previous two cases dealt with prayer and study. That was the subject matter, right? What's more important, the tzibur, the shliach tzibur, that was one debate. And then in the house of study, the yeshiva, what kind of yeshiva should be created, quality or quantity? And we'll see why this has to be stated now, and we will make a difference. And that is, listen to the subtleties of the argument, the distinction. Beis Medrash, Torah, Utfila. The previous cases, they argued about the about the yeshiva and about the shul, right? We're talking about mitzvahs. They're holy endeavors. In Cain, and therefore I would say, we'll see it's wrong, but I would say if they wouldn't argue here, in the case of the claimant and the defendant. I would say, whoa. When does Rabbi Gamliel hold this position? When does he look at not the mass? He looks at the quality. He looks at the content. When does he have this position? Because the subject matter itself is quality. It's not materialism. We're talking spirituality. Learning, davening. That's when the main thing is what? Is the content. If we're talking wheat and barley and money, this whole consideration doesn't apply. Because here, this is the world of physicality we're talking about. It's not a spiritual encounter here. It's an argument about finances and money and in court and wheat and barley. Then we don't look at the content. Then what's the whole consideration then is the actual physicality. I might think that in this case he would agree with the Chachamim. He only holds his position of quality when we're dealing with a subject matter that's to begin with about quality or spirituality. That's a distinction I would make if we have to say it here. In the words of the Sikha, I would think that when does the Gamliel hold that the superior and the value to quality is only when you're dealing, the subject matter is holiness, mitzvah, davening, learning, mismedrash, minyan. That's what he holds when we're dealing in the world of spirituality. So the virtue in spirituality is not quantity, but quality. That's what I would think. And then I would conclude, and I would say, but when it comes to not the holy world, the world of the mundane to begin with, there's no quality to begin with. It's all about the numbers. That's all it is. He would say in this case, it's all about the actual mass, the physical stuff. In this case, you would agree with the sages because he's talking barley, dismissed the whole case, goodbye. Now, it never adds in brackets a very interesting parallel. We followed so far, my friends? Yeah. Good. Mashenkin, yeah. So look at the square brackets. He puts in italics that ayin dalid. Ayin dalid stands for al-derech, similar to. It's similar but not the same. So he wants the reader to realize it's not the same case, the same scenario, but we can derive a similar principle. So let me just tell you what's going on over here. Need a bit of background. Friends, on Shabbos, it's a very simple, beautiful halacha. It's part of a very complex set of laws about Shabbos and Yom Tov. And namely like this, you have to know a principle like this. There's a principle, number one, that Shabbos cannot prepare for the weekday. It's a principle, friends. It's a very important halacha. Shabbos is a holy day, and you can't do anything on Shabbos in preparation for the weekday. So you can't wash your dishes on Shabbos, Friday night, or you can wash them Friday night if you're going to use them Shabbos day, but it's more relevant Shabbos day. Shabbos day, you can't wash your dishes. So you can't use hot water, obviously, because you can't put hot water on Shabbos, not for your dishes, not to wash your hands, not for a shower, not for anything. Just want to point this out, because when you put on hot water, what you're doing is you're causing cold water to go into the tank and you're cooking it, you're heating it up. That's why we may not use hot water on Shabbos. So you can't wash your dishes even with cold water, because why are you washing your dishes? You don't need them anymore today. It's for next week, for another time. So that's why Saturday night, it's dishwashing time. So I'm going to tell a little joke. It's not a joke, but it's a very good thing. A very important message. You know what I'm going to talk about? Yeah. So it says in the holy books, I don't know where it says this, but folding your talis Saturday night, right after Shabbos, we do that, right? We don't fold our talis on Shabbos for another reason, because it's like pressing, not to press, launder or press clothes on Shabbos. So we don't fold our Shabbos our talis on Shabbos, you do it right after Ma'ariv. So it says that folding your talis is a good omen for peace in the home for the week to come. So the fellow came to was talking to the rabbi, and he tells the rabbi, I don't remember exactly the story, but the bottom line is that he folds his talis, is very careful, or maybe he didn't, what should he do? The rabbi said to him, it's very nice, but more important for peace in the home is to help your wife with the dishes. Because invariably, they were washing out dishes and cleaning up, sweeping and vacuuming, and everything is done after Shabbos. Again, what's the principle? You can't prepare for Shabbos for the weekday. Now the question is, it's a whole tractate, friends, an egg that is laid on Sunday was prepared on Shabbos. And we have all these laws about in the reverse. A reverse, when it's Shabbos, Yom to follow Shabbos, you can't eat that egg. An egg was laid on Yom Tov, which follows Shabbos, you can't eat that egg. Because why? It was prepared on Shabbos. Shabbos prepared for Yom Tov. Beitza shenolda b'Yom Tov, when the day before was Shabbos, you can't eat. What's another question is, why? Because Shabbos prepared for Yom Tov. And now, the question is, an egg that is laid on Sunday, so it's prepared on Shabbos. Yet we're allowed to eat it. What's the reason? Because, here's the thing. A meal during the week doesn't have this value that we would consider when was it prepared. Because its valueless, the fact that it was formed in the chicken on Shabbos for Sunday, it's going to be the meal on Sunday doesn't have halachically. This whole discussion of preparing for meals doesn't apply to a weekday meal because a weekday meal doesn't have cheshivus. The whole discussion is if Shabbos precedes Yom Tov, and the Yom Tov meal has value, and this valuable meal is prepared for on Shabbos, problem. But on Sunday, halachically, a meal on Sunday doesn't have, it has value. Everything has value, but compared, it's not holy. It's not outright overt kedusha, and doesn't have value compared to Shabbos. So therefore, we don't consider Shabbos preparing for it, because there's no it to prepare for. There's no it. A meal on Shabbos, on Sunday, you're going to have eggs Sunday morning, and it was the chicken laid it Sunday morning. No problem that it was finished yesterday. Shabbos was working for today. It wasn't working for today. Shabbos didn't prepare for today because why? The meal today is not considered valuable that it's even being prepared for it. But it's not there. It's born today. It's born today because it doesn't have that value. So he's illustrating it. It's a nuanced halacha. I would therefore apply the similar principle to Rabbi Gamliel. Rabbi Gamliel in the case of the wheat and the barley.
Can I just ask a question?
Can I just get this clear? I want to make sure it gets it clear.
Sorry.
He would apply it. I would take that. He would take that principle and apply it to that. When does he say that you look at content? It's only in the world of kedusha, when the subject matter is davening and learning. But in the world not of kedusha, content has no. There is no content. Similar to this idea that a meal not during Shabbos does not have, it's not the same content at all, the same world as a meal on Shabbos. So we don't therefore consider Shabbos preparing for this meal. Clear? It's a similar idea. Okay, what's your question? Elza.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was trying to get it off mute.
Yeah.
So I understand exactly, but the concept that he was going with originally about content versus quality versus quantity, it seems like a more general rule and not specific to spirituality. Do you know what I mean? Like the inference that the original ruling didn't seem to me only spiritual because it had a physical aspect to it as well.
Yes, but I would say, but that's the question. Everything has two dimensions. What's the main thing? So if I only heard their argument about the Beis Medrash and the Shul, That's the only place where Gamliel expressed his view. I would say, why there of the two dimensions does he consider the spiritual dimension or the quality dimension to be the main thing? Because the subject matter is to begin with spiritual. At the end of the day, the davening and learning is not about the physical book. The whole thing is a spiritual endeavor. So in spiritual endeavors, that's where we look at quality and not the mass. But in the physical world, then we will consider the physicality to be the primary thing. I would make this distinction. At the end of the day, it's not so. He applies his principle here as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I would draw that if he wouldn't articulate it in the case of the barley and the wheat, I might say that here he wouldn't maintain his position, because it's a different world. And the example we just gave is really good,
Mm-hmm.
right? A meal has value, Shabbos and Yom Tov. That same meal on a weekday just does not have that value, and it's considered negligible and of no significance. So you're not preparing. Shabbos isn't preparing for the meal on Sunday. The meal on Sunday is not valuable enough to be in the world of Shabbos to be considered preparing for it.
Yeah, but the only reason why it's because God said that the halacha of Shabbos versus the halacha of the regular day.
Here too, you have to learn. Here too, you have to learn. You have to daven. There's halacha. You have to learn and daven.
Yes, the halacha is to learn and daven, but the halacha is not about a minion versus the tibor. Like it's not. That's
the question. In the halacha of learning and davening, what is the ikar of the learning and davening? The mass or the content? And there's reason to say only here the main thing is the content, because to begin with, it's a halachic content thing. To begin with, that's the whole world. The whole world is the world of spirituality. In stark contrast to the world of barley and wheat and money, where the whole world to begin with is contentless. Why are you guys even arguing? To take this even further, you shouldn't be arguing. The fact that you are arguing means you're really mired in a world of that's your whole world, the world of physicality. That's the whole world. So the physicality is what dominates the whole and defines the whole discussion. Okay. Further, did I answer your question? I hope.
Yeah, but I still don't agree. No, I hear what you're saying, but to me, it's just not the same. When it comes to a specific halacha,
I think we're going to go in circles.
Okay, forget it. I'll do it another. I'll tell you.
You've got to think about it.
Yeah. Okay.
You got to think. I think I actually missed the whole point.
My point is,
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why you missed it. Listen to me.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you agree, your mind, that what you just heard is a position? You're countering it, but is it a position?
Yes.
Oh, so that's all we need to know. Since there's that possibility, I might think Gamliel doesn't maintain his position here. That's all you need to know. If there's room for such a perspective, then Gamliel has to come out and say, no, I still hold it here. Now, you're saying I wouldn't apply it here, but you do admit someone else would make a distinction. That's enough for Gamliel to have to restate his position. You hear what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay, that's answered you.
Okay.
We're not saying definitively, it's no point. I might think, and there's an argument for that, and it's a position to be held. So then Gamliel has to say, no, I still maintain my position, even when dealing with wheat and barley. Even there, I look at quality and not quantity, because there is a position to differentiate the world of holiness and the world of unholiness, and a tremendous example from the laws of Shabbos and Yom Tov. So there is a position to this. Let's continue. Yeah. Therefore, if Rabbi Gamliel would not articulate his position again, in the case of he argued wheat and he admitted to barley, you couldn't apply his position when he's talking about davening and learning to the mundane. Because I might say that two different worlds and two different principles apply. Now, the brackets he adds, another important consideration, an additional one. Not just Rabbi Gamliel wouldn't know the sages. Now, that is the other way around. We wouldn't know the sages either. It's not just Rabbi Gamliel. That if what the Rabbi Gamliel and the sages only argued in the case of the barley and the wheat, maybe the sages would hold only here. I might think if they only argued here, I would know the sages' opinion over there, because over here the sages say that that we look at the. Here we say we look at the mass, and the mass here is different. He's arguing wheat. He's arguing barley. So here it's the mundane world, but in the world of holiness, you might think they agree with Rabbi Gamliel that there you look at the quality. We would know their opinion either. They only argued it here. They only argued here. Would know their opinion over there. So therefore, conclusion: the argument has to be stated in both cases, both the world of the holy and the world of the domain. Now we're going to get next week, friends. Actually, we're already running out of time. Next week, a fascinating, similar discussion about tzedakahs. Notice what we talked about here. We've had the argument about Torah. We've had the argument about tefillah, davening. And we had a case here also of in the mundane world. And the third pillar is what tzedakah. Fascinating argument about tzedakah. And it's really it's a sharp argument that boils down to in tzedakah, is it quantity or quality? So that we'll see, God willing, next week. Next week, one second. Next week is what? First, I'm not here. That doesn't matter. We've got the Zoom. Next week is Shivasa B'Tammuz. It's a fast day. I don't see why we shouldn't learn. Huh? What do you say, folks? Yeah? Don't see why not. Okay, so we'll be in touch. Keep look out for the WhatsApp. Have a wonderful week. Shavua Tov, everybody.
Thank you.
So I ask you right away about stuff.